When you look back on your life, you should be proud of all of it. I'm just getting started. Somebody said, Chris, when are you going to slow down? Never.
Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about the fact that we as a nation and as individuals need to go on an economic diet. We've become economically obese, and just as with a regular diet of food intake, there are foods that we need to decrease consumption of, and there's others we might need to eat more of that have more nutritional benefits. It's the same way with our money. Now, first of all, our nation needs to understand this, but we won't get into that, how the nation as a whole needs to invest in manufacturing, get our manufacturing base back. We need to save more so there's more ready capital that people can invest in productive things. But let's talk about individually, because many individuals need to go on an economic diet. They're getting too obese economically, and no matter how many carnival mirrors the government shows us that makes us look skinnier than we are, we're in bad shape, a lot of people financially, and as a nation for sure. A number I just read the other day, I can't believe it. If you aggregate all the American citizens together, the private accumulated household debt in the United States is now over $3 trillion. You know, we whine about the government being in debt somewhere between 14 and 53 trillion, depending on who you listen to, based on whether you're talking about current debt liabilities or future unfunded debt. But the American people themselves are $3 trillion in debt. The credit addiction has really come home to roost, and people are now having to pay the price for that. The housing bubble is popped. The game of going back and refinancing your house every couple of years and taking the equity out and spending it on worthless things, that game is over. People have been left holding the bag. There's a lot of jingle mail where people are mailing their keys back to the bank and saying, it's yours, we're gone, come find us, that kind of thing. So I wanted to talk today about going on an economic diet, about figuring out what kind of foods are good to eat and what kind of foods are bad to eat. And so individually, let's talk about the difference between consumption and investment, because good spending is spending that produces more income for you in the future, spending that accumulates assets, and an asset, as defined by Robert Kiyosaki, is something that kicks off more income. It kicks off cash flow. That's an asset. A house is not an asset because a house is extremely expensive to own, which is one of the reasons right now I recommend to a lot of people just to rent and let the market go further down, wait to buy in more toward the bottom. But anyway, there are differences between good spending and bad spending. Consumption is wasted. Investment supposedly brings a later return. And I want to just talk through these because as I sit down and go through finances with people, I find out just some amazing things. And so let's just go through a list of things that would be called non-productive spending. This is wasted. Once the money is gone, it's gone. And remember, this is money that people are spending after the heavy burden of having to pay taxes on it. So this is after-tax money, a very precious quantity, and people are wasting it on things like cable television, satellite television, upgrades on all those things, movies at movie theaters, movie rentals, movie purchases, DVD collections, restaurants, and eating out and leaving tips, which you should do if you go to that kind of restaurant, but just don't go. Shopping, clothing, fashion, jewelry, magazines, newspapers, music CDs, and downloads. Foo-foo coffees, the kind that have big, long, one-sentence long names. You drink them with your finger in the air, and they get the little cozy on there and all that fancy stuff. Soft drinks and snacks, sporting events, cigarettes, alcohol, spas, nails, hair treatments, all those different treatments, the skin treatments, all the different things you can spend money on. Even wastefulness at the grocery store. There are ways to go and get the same caloric intake from a grocery store and spend 1/3 of what you would if you'd bought all the expensive pre-packaged, sugar-full, all the unhealthy foods, all the pre-cut fruits and all the things that take money to buy. You can buy things a lot cheaper than that. Travel, entertainments of all kinds, hobby equipment, and even pets. It's amazing how much people spend on their pets. But anyway, I don't want to slay any sacred cows here, get anybody upset, but that's consumption. In essence, most of that is wasted, reckless money. But productive spending is investment. It's putting money into true assets. And here's what I like to talk about. It's food for the goose. If you think about the story of the goose that laid the golden eggs, our homes and their false increase in value that they went through there for a few years was not the goose laying the golden eggs, even though a lot of people were led to believe that that was true. The goose that lays the golden eggs is your own ability to perform. It's your ability to either do really well in your corporate career or more likely do really well in an entrepreneurial endeavor where you build your own small business and you add to the economy by generating revenue through productive means, by hiring employees to help you with that, by expanding the productive economy around you and your own productive economy, and that's investing. And so a lot of times what happens is people will be so wasteful. They'll spend money on so many dumb things and they'll get so far in trouble that then they panic And you see people do this with diets. They panic in their diets too. And I'm only going to eat meat, or I'm only and they go to extremes. And let me just tell you this: extremes are rarely the solution. Extremes rarely work. And so going to an extreme nutritionally for our bodies is not only not a good idea, it doesn't last long term. We'll whipsaw back into those old habits and go right back to our old unhealthy self, but it also is destructive because it deprives our body of the nutrients that we need. Well, economically for a diet, it's the same thing. Economically, what we need to do for a diet is we need to realize, all right, what's the goose in my life that lays the golden egg? What can I do at work, or what can I do in my business that's the most productive? And where can I put energy, time, and money and invest it in a way that over time it'll bring back a return? And that should not be limited. But everywhere else where I'm wasting money, going out to dinner, driving around in recreation, going out for entertainments, keeping all the old habits that got me into trouble in the first place, that has to get gone. And what I see people do, though, is they panic and they stop doing everything, which is good on one side, on the destructive, wasteful spending of consumption. But then they also stop taking some of they stop feeding the golden goose. The goose, not the golden goose, that wouldn't make any eggs, but the real goose that lays the golden eggs. They stop feeding the goose. I can't talk. They stop feeding the goose that lays the golden eggs. Here's the principle: we feed the goose first. We feed the goose continuously. We feed the goose consistently, and we never stop. And we don't panic and starve the goose. We make sure the goose is warm and safe and comfortable, and we feed the goose long term so the goose can get more productive and have all kinds of little gooses or geese that'll produce more golden eggs. Not spend our money and waste our money taking the food that should go to the goose and wasting it in our consumptive, bad habit, obese economic lifestyle. And if we'll remember that, food for the goose, the way to dig yourself out of an economic problem right now is to figure out what your golden goose is, what's your goose that lays the golden eggs, and feed that goose. You might have to sacrifice over here. You might not get to do the things you used to do over here. Christmases might be a little thinner for a while, but you know what? It's not going to hurt you. A massively overwhelming material lifestyle doesn't make you any happier anyway. What makes you happy is to be productive and to be doing the things that you were created to do, using your energies in a productive, vision-directed direction, and feeding the goose and having some victories and growing yourself and achieving things. Those things are way more fun than just going into debt to buy the next shiny object that catches our eye. So remember the principle of feeding the goose that lays the golden eggs. Put your money into the food for the goose that lays the golden eggs. Stop wasting money on consumption and start putting money in investment. And the best place to invest is in yourself and the things that you can do that are productive long term. You are your best asset. Invest in you and don't waste the food for the golden goose. All right, guys, hope that helps. We'll see you next time.